And so that's what I want to talk about this morning. My talk is called Spiritual Work. And sometimes when we just hear the word work, we already now tune out. We maybe need to call it spiritual play, spiritual fun, having fun with spirituality. But what is spiritual work? What is it about rising up in support of something else? I talked about the springtime and how when trees, they lose all of their leaves. If we didn't automatically know, if we haven't been around the block a time or two to know that the leaves are coming back, if we were really only judging by appearance, we would be ready to cut down that tree. Because for all intents and purposes, it looks like it's dead. It looks like it's useless. Some of our plants, the same way. Our flowers, they look like they're useless during the winter. There's no green at all. Some of them turn an ashen gray. But we have been around the block a few times. So we know in this, for nature, that we're willing to wait. We're willing to trust in something bigger to know that, oh, this too shall pass. This too, so that we await and we anticipate the return of the leaves, the return of the buds, the return of the birds, the return of the sun, the return of the flowers. We know and we'll wait. And so in this way we've done some sort of spiritual work because we're not just judging by appearance. But when it comes to our own lives, when it comes to our own challenges, when it comes to the situations that sometimes we go through, it's as if we have never been around the block a time or two. It's as if we're learning for the very first time, and whatever problem, challenge, situation, whatever we are going through, we think this is the end of the world, that we're never going to return to joy, that we're never going to return to wholeness, that our happiness is gone from us forever because we are in the midst of some sort of crisis. Or, let's say we're not so desperate into crisis, but we have a goal, we have a vision, we have an idea, and we've talked about it over and over and over. Maybe we've tried and failed, and we've tried something else and failed, and we've tried a third time and failed. And so we now give up because we are judging by appearances, we're judging by our past history, we make an assessment about who we are, and we're ready to dig our own selves up by the roots because we think spring is never coming. But yet in nature, we never have that idea. And so that's where spiritual work comes in. One form of spiritual work is prayer. And we used to sing a song, our thoughts are prayers, and we are always praying. So we don't need to have our hands clapped in a certain prayer formation. We are always praying. We are always enacting this power for good, the creative principle. We are always in tune with the infinite, whether or not we know it. So when we behave as if we've not been around the block a few times, and we are continuously affirming for ourselves, oh, I'm never going to amount to anything. Life never works out for me. I'm not lucky. I'm too old. I'm never going to have enough money. I'm not going to get a relationship. Whoa, 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 woe is me. These are actually this is our spiritual work at work. We are actually engaging in the wrong activity of spiritual work when we are judging everything by appearance. But there is a higher way, and we all know that. When we get out of ourselves and our own stuff, we can see it so clearly even within other people. We know. They might be going through some challenge, but we know it's a temporary state because we're not stuck in their stuff. But somehow we get stuck in our own stuff. Spiritual work is a call to rise up to something greater. Spiritual work is a way for us to connect to that presence and power that is everywhere. That presence and that power that is not only everywhere, but right where we are. Spiritual work, however it is that recognition that we are wonderful, that we're awesome, that we're magnificent, not because we're egotistical, but because we are the embodiment, we are the outpicturing of a divine presence, of a divine flow, of a wholeness, of a perfection. But we need to have sometimes this spiritual work or spiritual play to recognize that. And not just take the path of least resistance. Not just take the well-worn trail to mediocrity. It is so super easy to judge by appearance. We all know how to do that. Just open your eyes. Oh, bad. Oh, good. Badder. Gooder. Right? We all know how to do that. There's no challenge in that. The challenge is to see beyond to the perfection within everything, even the perfection with our own selves, the wholeness beyond everything, the life that is living in everything, the potential, the beauty, the joy, the harmony in a situation perhaps that looks anything but harmonious. We can do it. Archbishop Trent said this. He said, prayer is not overcoming God's reluctance. It is laying hold of God's highest willingness. God is never reluctant. We're reluctant. We're the ones that separate ourselves from the truth, from the knowledge, from the power, from the knowingness, from the creative essence of all that is. We're the ones who are reluctant to receive and experience our own greatness. We have a lot of stuff that gets in our own way. We might think we're doing spiritual work. Oh, please God, send me some money. Oh, please God, send me some relationships. Oh, please God, send me some health, or whatever we're going to maybe pray for, because we think we don't have it. And in that thinking that we don't already have what it is that we want, we are reluctant because we're out of sync with it. We're not a match for it. There's not something greater away from us. Everything is right here and right now. But that spiritual aspect, that spiritual work is looking above and beyond, rising up, realizing that there is a greater truth. And so today is Palm Sunday. And so, there is a part in the Bible when Jesus is coming back into town to Jerusalem, for Passover. It's everything. There's no mistake. There's no mistake that Passover is in springtime. There's no mistake that new growth happens in springtime. There's no mistakes. It's every story is our story. Every story serves to show us and remind us, because we forget all the time. We have like amnesia, right? Long-term, short-term, long-term, middle-term amnesia. We continuously forget. Oh yeah, this too shall pass. Oh yeah, the presence and the power of God is right where we are. Oh yeah, oh yeah. So Jesus is coming to town. He knows what's happening. He's you know what, he knows. He didn't have to come he could have hidden out. But he has a greater story to tell. He knows it. But anyway, as he's coming to town, in the Bible, all the words of the cities, all the names have very significant meaning. So he's coming into Jerusalem through Bethphage and Bethany. Well, Jerusalem means habitat of peace. So even though he's coming in, and there's some kind of going to have some tragedy going on pretty soon, we know the ending. But maybe he doesn't exactly know, or his friends don't know. But how can he come into town with peace? Why? He can move through any situation with peace because he knows that there's a higher way. He is connected with his God self-awareness. He realizes that right where he is the presence and the power of God. He has been doing his spiritual work, and instead of approaching challenges and issues like most of us might approach it, with worry and fear and anxiety and wringing of hands and gnashing of teeth and telling all of our friends about ain't it awful and you know what happened, and getting everybody on our own bandwagon to agree with us that this is the worst tragedy known to mankind and you should not even go. What's the point? You should know. He can enter through situations with peace and live in the area of peace because he knows that there is a higher way. He knows that God is everywhere present. He knows that there is a different plan that he sees, and maybe he doesn't really see the whole big picture, but he knows that there's a bigger picture. That there is an infinite intelligence at work. And so through the turmoil, through anything that we might go through, when we have done our own spiritual work, we can walk through anything with our head high because we can live in this habitat of peace. Because right where we are is the infinite, the peace and the joy, the love, the aliveness, the magnificence, the beauty, the harmony of God. God is never disharmony. We have separated ourselves from it because we have mistakenly believed that outside things controlled us. We have mistakenly believed that whatever it is that we're going through, that doesn't seem like it's perfect in our own eyes, we mistakenly think that that's the truth. We mistakenly identify with that as if it defines us. But we don't have to be defined by that. We can instead define ourselves by the truth, by that habitat of peace, by that God presence that is right where we are. When we have that awareness, that knowledge, then we can move forward in peace and joy through everything because we are powerful creators. We have interrupted, like if God is good, everywhere present, 24/7, 365, in its entirety, God is what we are and all the goodness, then we are that. And to the degree that we are not experiencing it, it's that we have cut ourselves off from an awareness, from the divine flow. We have separated ourselves. We are that powerful. We're awesomely powerful. Well, guess what? We're just as powerful the other way. All we have to do is get in alignment now. And that might take a different sort of spiritual work, but it can happen. And we can be excited and thrilled and peaceful as we are moving towards a recognition of our own wholeness. But we have, a lot of us have adopted, that Mac Daddy of false beliefs, which is what? I'm not worthy. I'm not important enough. It can happen for everybody but me. Well, that Mac Daddy of false beliefs really separates us. And it helps us enter into this idea of suffering. So let me read what Dr. Ernest Holmes says, founder of religious science. He says, God did not create, you'll like this, God, or maybe not. God did not create the world so that we have to suffer part of the time, in order that we shall not have to suffer the rest of the time. If the universe demanded suffering, it would destroy itself. So he says, then why do we suffer? The only reason is because we do not yet know how not to suffer. How are we going to learn not to suffer? First of all, we should be absolutely certain that we have confidence in the universe. There is a transcendent something in us that rises triumphant over every disillusionment, fear, and failure. There is a transcendent something within us. We are not meant to suffer. I love that. Why do we suffer? And we could replace suffering with the word struggle, with being unhappy, with being discontent, with being frustrated that we're not getting what it is that we want. We can complaining, any of those words we can put instead of suffering. And why do we do that? Because we have not learned yet not how to do it. Now is the time to learn how to remove ourselves from suffering. And spiritual work would be part of that way. And part of that way, or all of that way, is to recognize that there is only one power, one presence, and it is God. And we have to refuse to continually think that we have to see the big picture, that we have to know all the answers before we get started. We only need to know what's right in front of us, live in that place of Jerusalem, which is the habitat of peace, have some faith, and know that there is that transcendent something, and we can take that next step. We don't need to see the big picture. And so seeing the big picture reminds me of a story about two boys that were sitting just in a cemetery just beyond the fence, and in front of a pecan tree. So they'd gone up to the pecan tree and picked all the pecans, and now they're sitting below the tree sharing the pecans, one for you, one for me. one for you, one for me. A couple of them flew over to the, fell and rolled to the fence. But they're sitting back below, and along comes another boy on his bicycle. And he's passing by the cemetery, and he hears, one for you, one for me. One for you, one for me. Well, he gets on his bike, and he turns the corner, and he runs into this old man who's walking very hobbly on a cane. And he says, Mister, you got to come with me. Come quick, come quick. I'm going to pass the cemetery, and you won't believe what I'm hearing. I'm hearing the Lord and Satan, and they're arguing, they're bargaining over souls. And the man says, get away from me, kid, get away. This is, it's not true. But no, you got to come. So the man hobbles with his cane. And sure enough, they get to the fence. You can't see because there's like bushes in the way. One for you, one for me. One for you, one for me. And the old man says, son, you were not lying. You were not lying. Let's see if we could see the Lord in there. So they try to push the chain link, but they can't see. There's stuff in the way. One for you, one for me. One for you, one for me. And now the other two boys counting the nuts are done. And they says, okay, well, that's it. Let's just get those few nuts by the fence and we'll be out of here. They say that man on the hobbly made it to town quicker than the kid on the bicycle. We don't see the whole picture. And that's okay. We're not supposed to see the whole picture. But the whole picture is love and joy and faith. It's a beingness and a beauty. The whole picture, sometimes we do see a whole picture. Because we know the cycle of life. We know that in the springtime the blossoms are going to come back. And we know again that come fall they're going to leave. And next year it's going to return. We know that. So we see a big picture, and that same big picture is right where we are. That there's ebbs and flows to life. I don't want to call them the ups and downs. I don't think that we have to move through tragedy and crisis in order to experience the highs. But there's ebbs and flows, and sometimes our satisfaction level will be higher, and sometimes it's less. And sometimes we're animated, and sometimes we're a little more tired. And instead of judging all these times that are down for us as down and depressing, it's just the ebb and flow. We do see the bigger picture. We know that there is something greater than we are that is really animating us, that is living through us, as us. And when we really focus on that, through our various practices of spiritual work, we can move through it all with a sense of joy and ease and peace because we know that there is something greater than what it is that we see.